I've always been interested in writing and speaking and storytelling. I was watching Boomerang, that Eddie Murphy film. And I remember there just watching that like, oh my gosh, there's these high-powered women working in these really opulent environments. What is that? But I've always felt like, oh my gosh, it just seems so glamorous and fun. It wasn't glamorous and fun. Well, I knew it wasn't going to be forever. That's what I knew for sure. So I was like, while I'm here, what are the skills that I could learn? Lose the ego. Because most times when you're not talking up, it's because you're in your head. You're making it about yourself when you need to focus on your message. You can have courage or comfort, but not both. Everything is a frequency. And it's like you either lower your frequency or people rise up to yours, right?
Welcome to another episode of Everyday Leadership. And today I have an amazing guest. This is someone who is highly sought after. I mean, she just had 13,500 plus people sign up for her LinkedIn careers talk. And that's not been done yet. It's not been started yet. So sure, number's going to rise for sure. So when I say she's highly sought after, she sure is. And, I don't like bios. I like people. I don't feel they do people justice. So I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, which should come easy to her. This is her in her bag. So over to you. Who are you? What you do? What are you about?
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. My name is Marielle Legair. I wear a few hats. I'm a LinkedIn top voice, LinkedIn learning instructor, and keynote speaker. But I often say that my superpower is helping professionals and entrepreneurs increase their visibility so that they can attract more opportunities through personal branding. So that's what I do.
I'd say you're someone who's been doing this for a very long time, both for corporate environments, and now you do it for yourself and you do it for personal clients.
Yes.
But one of the things I find really intriguing about you, you are an introvert, and you talked about this quite a bit. And I was like, how does someone who is an introvert get into the world of PR and helping people be visible? So I was curious, like, if I should go way back to a younger version of you, a teenage version of you, what were you like then?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, to me, introversion doesn't necessarily mean that you're shy. I think people often confuse the two. I'm definitely not shy. I'm somebody that just builds my energy up alone. I need to have that alone time, but I actually love networking. I love talking to new people. And if I think back to my teenage years, I was definitely just a low-key teenager. I would love reading, I would love cooking and just doing things, kind of low-key things. I'll go to the odd party here and there, but I was pretty chilled and pretty much a homebody, and I still am. Yeah.
It's actually surprising to hear you say that you're still a homebody, because if people just look at you like, Marielle's out there, like you're attending different events, you're seeing different people. That's the impression that you kind of get and give. And even saying that from then to now, that hasn't necessarily changed. I love the fact that you actually also shared around the stereotypes people can tend to have around introverts. But was this always something that you always wanted to step into from a very young age, or was it something that you accidentally stepped into? How did that journey actually begin for you?
In terms of the work that I do today?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess, I've always been interested in writing and speaking and storytelling. And I think if I look back at my journey, it's always been along those realms. I've always been telling stories. I spent nearly 20 years working in PR, and that is obviously all about storytelling. Now the work that I do is still about storytelling. I still share my story to help form a connection with people. So I've always kind of been within that realm, but it's just kind of taken different titles and guises, if you will.
When you started off in PR, was that something you did at uni, or was that something that you tried and you loved? What was that initial journey, even right from a very 17, 18, 19-year-old you?
Well, I kind of fell into it, so it's a bit random, but I was watching Boomerang, that Eddie Murphy film, Boomerang.
Classic.
Yeah, movie, and it's set in, I think it's Manhattan, big skyscraper building, and that's like an advertising agency. And I remember there just watching that, like a young mate, I was maybe like 14, 15 at the time, thinking, oh my gosh, like there's these high powered women working in these really opulent environments. What is that? And so it was either advertising or PR. There's kind of like a clear distinction between the two. But I've always felt like, oh my gosh, it just seemed so glamorous and fun. It wasn't glamorous and fun. It really wasn't. But it did give me good tools that I could kind of take with me. So I started in PR in 2005. I was working at a PR agency. I remember I had to kind of audition for the part, whereby we had to fill out an application, and there was, I think, like 500 applicants from around the country, and I and another girl, there was just two of us that were actually chosen to work at the agency. And that in itself was like, wow, to be selected from a pool of 500 applicants down to two. And I remember even the job interview was like, it's very rigorous actually for a graduate job. We had to, they gave us a brief, and we had, for a client at the time who was a poker client, and they said, hey, we want you to create a PR campaign for this poker client. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So what I did that I thought was genius, even back then, was I designed my notes on a pack of A4 cards. So I made them look like actual cards, right? So we had ace and spades, and I drew all like the diamonds and the hearts. And then when I was in the audition with the big execs, I drew from the pack and I presented to them the brief as if I was like drawing like a pack of cards, and they were just like, whoa. So I got that job. Didn't necessarily enjoy PR because it just felt, I mean, this is where my introversion really began to hold me back, because it was such a noisy environment. It was like you had music playing, you had the radio playing, and it was just like chaotic. And then you had just so much noise. And that's when I really realized, oh my gosh, I don't like working in such highly stimulated environments. But on the plus side, that's where I learned about new business, how to pitch new business, how to write, because at the time I had no idea how to even write a press release. And we're always writing, we're always communicating. So that job was perfect to help me kind of learn like the foundational skills that still, serve me well in the work I do today. So it was a great stepping stone.
How do you navigate when you're in spaces where you know this is not right for you? Like I said, it's high stimulation, but at the same time, it's also an environment that allows you to learn those different skills that you had. Because there are times where you have to balance one and the other one. So how do you make the right call, or how did you navigate making the right decision around that at that point in time for you?
Yeah, well, I knew it wasn't going to be forever. That's what I knew for sure. So I was like, I'm going to just learn all that I can and make the most of this time in my life. I know it's not going to be long term. So while I'm here, what are the skills that I could learn and really just fully, place myself and be there, be fully present in the role. But within 18 months, I decided to go to back to university and study my master's. So yeah, it was good for what it was for that short period, but I knew that it wouldn't be forever. And that's kind of what keeps me going,
So having that deadline in mind,
yes,
be like, that's the goal we're aiming for. So between now and then I can do it. So that's quite helpful to actually.
And it just keeps you motivated as well, right? Because otherwise you could be thinking, oh my gosh, this is my life forever. No, it doesn't need to be. As long as you've got a plan and you work towards that plan daily, you're fine,
And you have talked about the fact that you roughly spent about 15 years like helping CEOs and execs like raise their profile, shall I say, and raise their visibility. What was that for you, dealing with high-powered people and having some conversations? I know I've done some work previously. I know people had to edit like CEO keynotes and talks. Some of those conversations have not always gone very well, always appreciated in the right way, even though what you said was, or what that person was saying was quite correct. So how did you navigate being in that space for so long? What were some of the, I guess, the highs and the lows for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely character building for sure. And for me, I think I'm so grateful for that time because there's nothing more character building than being in like a high pressured environment, working with very busy, white, middle class males, and you don't quite fit in. So I think for a start, I had to really just learn how to connect with them on a deeper level. I had to learn the importance of rapport, establishing rapport. Just those soft interpersonal skills that were never really taught. You only learn when you're in it, in the job. So that's what I did. That's what I kind of set about learning, just learning how to build relationships with people, how to get a win-win, how to get buy-in from them. So that was key. And then also just being, likable, just trying to get them on side. And yeah, I would say those are the main things that have helped.
Is being likable a skill, or does it come naturally to some people?
I think you can learn it. I think all skills, a skill and a talent are very different things, right? So skills you could learn. You could definitely learn to be likable. There's certain traits. I've actually just come off a 7-day intensive NLP course, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And that is all about how to, a key part of it is about rapport building. So that's, matching body language, for instance. Eye contact is really important. There's certain things that you could do to quickly get people on side. So absolutely, I would say it's a skill.
It's someone who consistently keeps on learning. Like even just the short conversation I've kind of picked up from you, like university masters, obviously other courses you've done, the one you just currently finished right now. Why is learning so important to you? Because you also hear the narrative around you can learn all you want, but the application is where the wisdom comes in, and the execution is what's key. But you seem to have, we see you executing and you're doing that really, really well. But that learning is really, really important to you for sure. So why is that?
I feel like as an entrepreneur, we're constantly evolving. And in this climate, we have two choices. We could stagnate or we could evolve by constantly learning new skills. And that's how I'm able to just make a deeper impact. It's called skill stacking, right? You just equip yourself with multiple skills. And I think about when I was working at Deloitte in New York, one of the partners who kind of took me under his wing, and this was when I was feeling really miserable in the role, he said, and it stuck with me, he said, you need to master mutual usury. And I was like, what does mutual usury even mean? But he said, they're using you for your labor, and you need to think about what can you get from them, right? What can you get from them so it is mutually beneficial? And that's when a light bulb went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, let me just learn every single thing that I can, because then it's like your toolbox, right? You're not necessarily going to use every single skill immediately, but you could draw on certain things as and when you need them. So for me, that is writing, the ability to write, the ability to speak well, the ability to command an audience, right, as a keynote speaker, the ability to tell stories. All of those things are in my toolbox, and I draw on whichever one I need depending on my environment.
When I listen to you say that, and I think to myself, okay, that sounds absolutely great. The fact that you have those different skill sets that you can use and call on whatever you need to. But there also needs to be a belief that you have in yourself. One, either to be able to have that mindset to go like learn everything that you can, or two, to be able to pull those different things out of you. And you've written in the past about how some of the challenge you had even before you got to New York was working in an environment where you were the only woman, you were being passed out for promotions, different things like that. You had to go on your own self journey, and you met a career coach, which was great. But I always say for someone to go and seek out a career coach, there's still a level of self-awareness that is required. So I wanted to actually hear you speak on that. That what was it that caused that shift for you to be feeling the way you're feeling, being treated the way that you're being treated, and recognize that I need to do something about it, and then you want to seek help? Because a lot of times, a lot of people feel that way, but yet they stay stuck and they don't move forward.
I think I had just hit rock bottom, to be honest with you. I was like, I'm clearly not it's not working. Whatever I'm doing isn't working. And oftentimes we're too close to the situation ourselves. So for me, it's just good. I've always had, since working with a career coach, I've always kind of since worked with somebody who could almost just light the way for me, and I take the steps, right? They're a few steps ahead of me and they kind of just shine that light to help me. But the very first career coach I worked with was, I was actually in New York at the time, and I was having a really bad experience working in corporate America. You know, I'd never worked in corporate America, definitely character building. And I hired a career coach. She was a Ghanaian lady living in New York, but British born. So she also had an understanding of the two different cultures and how they kind of married together. And it was such a light bulb moment, because working with her, she had me do all of the these different tests that I've never ever done before. So like Strengths Finders, Myers-Briggs, and all of those things. And the results came back that I was never meant to work in a corporate environment. Who knew? Because I didn't. I had spent at the time, it was 10 years in, working in these high-powered, big global brands, corporate machines, right? So she helped me identify that actually that's not aligned to your personality type. You are a creative, you're a visionary, you're, a big blue sky thinker. So working in these very corporate, bureaucratic environments actually crushes your spirit, and that's what was happening. So after I realized that, I was like, wow, now I know who I am on a much deeper level, and I can now go off and create my own path. And that's what I did.
Well, that was in conflict though, because you get that, that whole narrative upbringing that put your head down, work hard, your work is speak for itself, that we tend to naturally get a lot from our family and previous generations do that. Shifting that mindset mentality to be like, actually, all these tests are telling me I shouldn't be here. I can go ahead and do my own thing. It's not a straightforward path. It's not a linear path. It doesn't just click. There are a lot of fears and insecurities, and I can definitely speak to personally, but working with clients and another what they do as well, that's all been real and relevant. And those fears and insecurities are the ones that keep people just stuck, even people who are rock bottom. So you had that conversation with her and you shifted, and you now said no, I'm going to go after it, I'm going to go and get it. Once you had that in your head about I'm going to go after, I'm going to go and get it, were there any other times when you had doubts around, is this the right thing for me? Or were you just completely resolute from then onwards?
No, I think I was just so clear on what I didn't want. And I knew that the path that I wanted to go down, I'm very clear on what my values are. So one of them is freedom. A big one is freedom for me, the freedom to determine how I spend my time, who I work with, the money I make. All of that is based around freedom, right? So once I was very clear on the path, I didn't really deviate away from that. Sure, my business has evolved because I left corporate America in 2016, and I've had very different iterations of the work that I do, but it's always been on my own terms. So yeah, I was very clear on the path that I at least knew that I didn't want to work in corporate again.
How do you begin to define your values?
I think a lot of self-reflection, a lot of just thinking about. A really big exercise for me that really changed the game was the Ideal Day exercise. It's in one of my favorite books, which is somewhere here. It's Lewis Howes's book, and he has you write out what your ideal day is like. So on a really granular level, so you wake up at what time? Which city are you in? Are you in a city or are you in a suburb? What sort of work are you doing between 9 to 10? And that really got me thinking. And when I mapped it out, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not living my ideal day. I'm doing this work and it's kind of like I'm on autopilot. So once I really got clear on, okay, what does my ideal day look like? Then I was able to identify my values, because what came up was freedom, creativity, Impact is a big one for me. Impact, income, those are really big ones. Like I need to feel like I'm making a big global impact, because otherwise I get bored, and otherwise I just feel like I'm playing really small. So yeah, that's what helped me get clear.
It's quite good to actually have, I see values as guiding lights for us to help us to navigate and to know, yep, I'm going down the right path, or I'm not going down the right path. So they're quite key. And it's interesting you mentioned, we talked about freedom as well, but when you moved from London to New York, you talked about how you were in Brazil, you came back, you always had this love affair with New York.
For your listeners, the Brazil trip is quite relevant, because that was like a game-changing trip for me, because up until that point, I had very much been part of the corporate matrix structure, thinking that a 9 to 5 was all there was for me. And it's only when in 2010, I quit my miserable job and booked a one-way ticket to Brazil by myself, that I realized actually there's a whole big world out there. I could create whatever I want to create. And I remember sitting there in Salvador, Brazil. I could hear the drums, people playing drums, and it was beating in the mountains. I could hear that, and it was just such a spiritual experience. And I'm sat there writing in my journal and just realizing, wow, this is what I've created for myself. I've given myself this time to really just pause and go within and identify who I am at my core. And I realized up until that point, I had never done that. I had always been swayed by other people that hadn't even achieved anything that I wanted to achieve. They were kind of the people who played it safe. It's only when I went to Brazil that I realized, actually, I am in control. I'm in control of my thoughts. I'm in control of the actions I take. I'm in control of my daily habits and essentially the opportunities I create for myself. So that Brazil solo trip was pivotal. And it was only then that I had the courage to relocate to New York 2 years later in 2012. So it was kind of like the stepping stone for that.
How did other people influence you and your thoughts in the way that you just kind of mentioned? I personally talk about as being a leader from inside out rather than outside in, which is letting us kind of affect our environments rather than the other way around. Because most of the times it is the other way around, and you just kind of spoke to that. And I was curious because you're someone who is well-educated, amazing at what you're doing at that point in time. But then you're also letting the voice, like you said, other people who haven't even done anything or gone to the level you want to get to influence you. So how did that actually come about?
You know, at the time, I didn't have as strong as I do now sense of self or self-identity. I was very much influenced by my environment and the peers in my environment, you know. So they would often say things like, wow, you're going to Brazil by yourself. Who do you think you are? Black women don't travel by themselves. Do you think you're white? All of these stupid things. I just didn't, I kind of just had to shut them out in the end, because I knew that it was something that I needed to do. And I'm so glad that I did. But now I think because I've got such a strong sense of self, I don't really allow other people to influence me. I've got a very small circle of friends that if I'm facing a problem or a challenge, I would talk to them, or I'd talk to my parents. But aside from that, you know, I'm not easily swayed by external people.
And how did you begin to, I guess, determine the right circles and the right environments that both not just match your energy, but elevate you and will sustain you and push you, because that's really important?
Yes, it is. And how do you determine? I think it's only really by getting out there. So I've just got back from New York, and I'm actually going to be spending much more time in New York again, because I realize with the work I'm doing, I just get so much more love there. And I think it's important to be where the love is, and you only realize how much more there is for you when you step outside of your front door, right? Like when you step outside of what's comfortable, go to new environments, and you realize, wow, actually, there's people out there that are huge advocates of my work, and you need to be around those people. And I think as a creative as well, that's important.
You're going to New York, spending time there, you're getting more love there. This was a space and a place that you did not have networking
No,
previously.
correct.
Like, it sounds wild listening to you say that, but that's the reality of it. And I guess I'm curious as to, I know you talked about the power of relationships and building all that things that you said previously, but I am curious, how is it that you have been able to not just build relationships, but build really strong, I guess, personal brand to the point where, like you say, you feel at home there, you're getting shown love there, and it just feels like I'm just going to spend more time there?
Yeah, well, the first time I moved there, as mentioned, was 2012, right? So when I moved in 2012, I was working at a global accountancy firm, Deloitte. I was there until 2016 in Deloitte. So, I was very familiar. I was living in Brooklyn, living the whole New York lifestyle. And then in 2018, that's when I decided to come back home to London. But, I've always kind of been back and forth. Like this year alone, I've been there like twice already. I was there in April, and I was there just a few days ago, right? So I've got a solid group of friends that are there, mainly Londoners actually, who have moved as well. And I mean, it's just a sort of place where it's very easy to maneuver and meet people, much easier than London. I find it very hard actually to build relationships with like-minded people in London. I don't think London, for me, is an easy place to build relationships with like-minded people. New York is much easier.
How did you talk about you going to Deloitte, but you also talked about you had this love affair with the US.
New York.
New York? Is it specifically just New York or the US?
I mean, US, you got to keep in mind, US is huge.
Yes.
Every state is very different. And I've been to a lot of the states, but they are so different. So I would be specific and say New York.
New York, okay. You had a dream to go to New York, and you were on all expenses paid flight to New York to start that journey. How'd you go from, I know people talk about manifesting or thinking about it, but it's like you had this vision and became a reality in a very amazing kind of way. How did you actually bring that to life? Because people have dreams, people have goals, and it just sits on a board or it sits on a Pinterest board and nothing ever happens to it. So you did it. So I'm curious, like, what's some of those tips and gems of wisdom that you can share with people?
Yeah, well, I'm a spiritual being. I'm very spiritual, and I believe that our thoughts create our reality. And I have always been like a kind of very unrealistic in terms of what I want to achieve and what I want to do. So back in early 2012, I created a vision board, and it was of me walking down the street. Put an image of me walking down the street in Brooklyn, and I would literally close my eyes, hand on heart, and I would visualize myself. I would put myself in Brooklyn while sitting here in my flat in London, and I would just feel into it. So that's the first thing. You really got to feel into it and believe that it's possible for you. But then you got to take micro steps, right? Micro steps towards that goal. So for me, that looked like reaching out to people on LinkedIn who were either based in New York or who had lived in New York. And I sent them really polite, tailored messages, to really just try to, again, build rapport with them, get them on side to help me. I put myself on a flight. I paid for that flight by myself and put myself there, flew myself out to New York to start networking with the Deloitte New York people, had coffee meetings with them, applied for a job, and that's how I was able to get flown out there a few months after that. They paid for everything. And I think sometimes when we don't achieve our goals is because we are not taking enough action, right? It's one thing to have a goal, but you need to be taking those small micro steps towards it. And I'm always been very clear on, okay, these are the small steps I need to take consistently to achieve what I want to achieve.
And all the things that you have done and you have achieved so far, what are you the most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Yeah, that's a great question. I have to think about that. What am I most proud of? I mean, there's a few. I think moving to Brazil, not moving, like just going to Brazil by myself, taking that risk. Um, I actually would say that I'm proud of quitting. Proud of quitting. Yeah, proud of quitting environments that don't serve me. I don't really hang around for a long time. If I know that something isn't working in my gut, I'm like, okay, I'm out. Last year I moved to New York again, but I moved to a neighborhood that was quite sketchy. I was like, I'm out, I don't have to stay here. So I would say quitting. Proud of quitting places and people that don't serve me.
I actually think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world that quitting is sometimes can be seen as a bad thing. As I just push through, and that time I was like, nah, you need to fall back and just let it go. Like it's a sign. That's not it. Like you need to just let it walk away from it.
I think I have so much faith as well, so much faith in my ability to create something new, to create something better for myself. And I'm like, okay, this isn't for me. And I think there's a lot of power in that for sure.
You talk about the faith in yourself. I started to think about I think it's ladies. Sorry, you launched the Women Who Influence thing way back.
Women Who Influence, yes, that was one of my very first brands in 2017.
And I read that you spent time building up, and over the years, and things like 2020, you lost like 5 years of work on your website.
Yes.
How did you respond to that? Because that's not minor. That's a major, so how did you respond to that?
Well, so yeah, I had this big website that I invested a lot of time in, had tons of articles, all of my work, and it just randomly, I think it was a server issue. It kind of just was deleted off the internet. And I had invested like thousands of dollars on that website. But again, it's funny because I remember talking to a coach at the time and I told her, and I was a bit upset for like a day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset. I've lost all of my work. The website's just gone. And her response to me was, good. I'm glad it's gone because you would not have let that go otherwise. And she was right. I wouldn't have. And it was quite cathartic in a way because it's like, okay, let's clear some space so that we can bring in the new. You can't hold on to the past expecting new stuff to come in, right? You've got to let something go, right? Let go or be dragged. So I'd happily just release things in the belief and knowing that actually something better's coming. And I love my new website now because it's more me and it's more aligned to the sort of clientele that I want to attract. I, with the Women Who Influence brand, had a website that wasn't actually aligned to me, but I was so comfortable and so familiar with it that I was holding on to it. So for anyone listening, think about, what do you need to let go of? What do you need to let go of to let something else come in? So when I think about it like that, I'm like, okay, well, bye. It's fine.
You're constantly doing that check in your day-to-day, your normal life around, are there things I need to let go of, or do I just keep on doing certain things?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I say that now. I've just unpacked my suitcase from being away for a week. So I feel like, when you just feel a bit disoriented. So yeah, but I do think it's important to constantly keep a clear space and to let things go that you don't need. In fact, that's what I'm going to be doing all of August, is just like clearing stuff out and throwing stuff away.
When you're off, do you completely switch off, or do you schedule posts, still have conversations behind the scenes, or do you just completely no, this is my complete detox time?
I think this time I'm just going to switch off. I'm going to put my out of office on and just pause. No posting, no social media. There's a lot of people that tell you that you should still be on. People need to, I don't buy into that. Again, this links to my introversion. I have to really manage my energy, and I have to have really, really tight boundaries. And I know that people probably find that a bit hard to deal with, but for the work I do, I have to maintain my energy. So yeah, I have to have those tight boundaries.
How do you show up your best? What is it allows you to know that this is me at my best, this is me at 50%, this is me at 0? How do you actually do that? Do you know that for yourself?
Yeah, a lot of self-care, that's really important to me. So like good sleep, staying hydrated. I have a sauna blanket as well. I've just used my sauna blanket. So I don't know if you're familiar, but an infrared sauna blanket is essentially, it's a blanket, but it's infrared. It's like infrared inside. So what it does is it helps you, it's a really high temperature and it helps you really sweat out toxins and things. So it's just a good way to preserve like your energy, your cells. I do a lot of juicing. I do the whole, every aspect of like self-care, like juicing, journaling, cardio, all of those things. I'm very, very big on self-care. I've got like my massage therapist. She's coming to my house later on. So, I mean, it's surprising that I leave my house. But yeah, so I'm very, very big on all of that.
Interested of looking after yourself. Like you're modeling that. Like that's.
Oh yeah.
I want to look into that sauna blanket thing for sure. That actually sounds really nice because normally you go to the sauna, you go to the gym or whatever. But if you can actually do that at home,
you're around other people. I mean, if that's what you're into, but I just prefer to be in my own little blanket. You're sweating, your sweat. You wipe it down afterwards, and yeah, for me, it's just much more impactful.
When you think about what you want to step into next, it sounds very much like you are constantly thinking, iterating, what's that next goal? What's that big goal? How do you balance both of being grateful for where you're at now while striving for where you want to go to next?
Well, I'm very, very grateful, and I'm actually just really enjoying like this stage that I'm at. So if anything, I'm somebody who likes to go deep rather than broad. So right now I've got one keynote that I tend to deliver. I've got one framework that I teach, and I just go really deep with that. So I improve that constantly, but it is always kind of the same thing that I talk about. And I really just want to focus on that, just improving that. I'm actually going to just take time to work less and focus more on like family, relationships, and that side of things, because by the time you look, we'll be at the end of the year and I don't just want to be working. That doesn't really appeal to me anymore.
Just last week, during the podcast I was talking about, we are human doings, not human beings. And it's so easy for us to get into that zone of just going. And it takes a lot of intentionality just to either stop or slow down or have that constant assessment around us. So, and it's key.
Absolutely. Because otherwise you're just looking, it's like, wow, summer's, we're at the end of July now, right? It's going to be August in a few days. How are you going to spend that time? A friend of mine, she suggested creating a joy list. And I love that, like a list of things that you absolutely love to do. I don't have that list right now. So I want to create that so that I'm just being very intentional about, how I'm spending my time.
It's a good idea, actually.
A joy list.
A joy list. That is, I like that.
Yeah.
With all the different things you have done and the trainings that you have done, and this is an impression I get, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sometimes comes across that you are surprised at the amount of people that, I don't know, sign up to a LinkedIn course or take the course or do the different things that you put out there. Is that the feeling is my assumption correct that you always come across surprised, or is it just like, nah, I know I got it. Like, of course I'm going to sign up to it because what I'm doing,
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in myself and I know that I'm good at what I do. I'm not somebody who's going to be self-deprecating and saying like, oh, but I also appreciate how busy people are. So, and I'm also just grateful, grateful for the time that people invest, grateful for every single person who takes the time to respond or reply to a comment or sign up to whatever it is I'm doing. Like, I don't take that for granted, but equally, I recognize that I've earned my stripes. You know, I'm not somebody who just walked up yesterday and was like, okay, I this is what I do. You know, I invest a lot in learning multiple skills, and I've been in my industry a very long time. So yeah, it's coming from a place of gratitude more than anything else.
For someone who, you were able to answer this really, really well. In the UK in particular, there is this being super, super humble. Like, don't really talk about your accomplishments, your accolades, your achievements, all that kind of stuff. When you do, it's seen as bragging. In the US, New York, the complete opposite, where you need to talk about what it is that you do. If you don't, one, who's going to know who you are anyway, but two, it's not bragging or ego, it's just you highlighting different things that you have done. So it's part of the culture. Which energy do you naturally lean into more?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I mean, I remember being in New York and going to events and things, and we'd all have to go around the table and they would say, hey, introduce yourself, just take 30 seconds to introduce yourself. And people will be there giving like a whole monologue for 5 minutes. And I'll be like, wow, this would never happen in the UK. So I believe there's like a happy medium. In New York, you have a lot of people that talk a good game and often there's no substance to it. Whereas in the UK, there's people that are so accomplished, but because they don't own it, you immediately kind of just overlook them. And that was initially me when I plonked myself in New York, and I was, you know, I would never really advocate or talk up for myself, and people would quickly just kind of, move out the way, talk over you, because it's like, okay, you're not pushing yourself forward. So I'm happy that I've kind of got the best of both. You know, I'm highly skilled, got, you know, a lot of capabilities, a lot of achievements. You know, the brands that I work with, everything, right, is legit, right? I'm not just somebody who says, oh, I do this. I generally do it. But equally, I think there's a time and a place for kind of pounding your chest. So I think there needs to be kind of a happy medium, because I know so many people in the UK that aren't as far as they should be because they're too comfortable not talking about themselves, right? And I often say, you know, the best known wins. If people don't know about you, it's very hard in any industry to attract the attention of people. So we all have to make sure that we are promoting what we're doing, and obviously make sure that we're credible as well.
So how do you encourage, for example, those people that you do know who are amazing, but struggle or comfortable with not speaking up, even though they're getting passed by other people who are subpar to who they are? What is it that will get them moving and starting to talk a little bit more and just taking those baby steps, because that's what they need to do?
Lose the ego. Because most times, 9 times out of 10, when you're not talking up, is because you're in your head. You're making it about yourself when you need to focus on your message. And that was a reframe that I had to focus on, because for the longest while, I stayed in my head like, oh no, people are going to judge me. People are this. People don't care. People are more concerned with what they're going to have for dinner, right? Nobody's looking at you. So once you get over that fear and focus on your message, game changer, because then you would really be able to make an impact by sharing your message to those who need to hear it. So that's the reframe that needs to happen.
What's the key message you have for people when it comes to the work that you do that you always want to get across?
You can have courage or comfort, but not both, right? You can have courage or you can have comfort, but not both at the same time. So I'm here to empower the people that I speak with and my clients to really step out in courage, right? Have the faith that whatever it is that you're working on is going to work out for you, but you must take that step, and that comes with courage and betting on yourself. So that's really it. You know, it's like, which are you going to choose? Are you going to stay in your comfort zone? Because as you build your brand, as you put yourself out there, you're probably not going to feel comfortable to begin with. You probably are going to be concerned that people are looking at you. But the more courage and the more action that you take, the less you care about other people, you know?
Are you ever still in your head about the things that you you put out there or the talks that you do when you're about to get on stage? And do you still have like, I don't know, limiting beliefs that you also still have to navigate? Or have you got to that stage where it's just like, I know what I'm doing, I can just push through on a regular basis?
I definitely still have limiting beliefs, but I think they're different. I think before, when I was first starting, it was, you know, "Oh, am I capable of doing this?" Now it's like, okay, I know my stuff. How can I 10x it? How can I make it even more impactful? And I think I always want to have that. I always want to feel that. I never want to get comfortable where it's to a point where, you know, people kind of just like, oh, she's a bit too relaxed, you know. I always want to have that fire in my belly. I'm doing a workshop for a bank in New York on Tuesday, and that's why I'm going to be working the weekend, because I need to really just make sure that it's amazing, right? So I could just put out the same presentation that I've done, you know, for the last 6 months, but where's the fun in that? You know, I want to go up a notch with everything that I do.
Do you generally have fun in the work that you do?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't do it. Where's the fun in that?
You'd be surprised though. Listen, you know this. Like, you worked in environments where a lot of people do stuff and it's not fun. You just feel like you have to do it, and you just keep on getting to that same like hamster wheel. So fun is not always something that is like a one-on-one on the work that most people do.
Yeah, but I feel in 2023, with all the resources at our disposal, there's no reason. We're all going to die, right? We're all going to die. There's no reason to be doing stuff you don't love. That's how I see it.
Are
you into human design at all?
A little bit.
Do you know your human design type?
I do not, actually.
Okay, so there's 5 different archetypes. I'm a generator. The common trait of a generator is that they can't do shit that doesn't excite them, right? So for me, it's like literally soul destroying for me to. And generators, you know, they're very magnetic. They've got a really potent aura. So for me to keep that aura shining bright, I have to do stuff I love, because otherwise I'll just be miserable, and that's not fun. You don't want to be around miserable people.
You don't? But naturally speaking, you end up doing that anyway. Just because of the way of the world and way people generally operate, the mindset, the mentality that you have, the courage that you have, like you said, people tend to lean more into comfort than courage. And learning how to be able to navigate that to ensure that it doesn't affect you, go back to your point of knowing yourself, is a skill in itself, which I don't think a lot of people think about, but also don't necessarily tend to have. So the way that you're describing for me, that's why I was quite curious, that it sounds like very much you know how to be like, even in the environments I'm in, I know how to not let those environments shape me. I know how to be able to even inflect my own version to the point where I leave people better than I find them. I get them to think very, very differently, which is super important. But it's just, that's why I was quite curious as to the fun and the elements of different things like that you have.
Yeah. I think it's the responsibility as well in, you know, as a speaker and a facilitator, as a coach. It's almost like I feel it's my duty, right, to lead people better than I find them. And I can't teach what I don't practice, right? So it's on me to almost fill up my own cup so that I could just pour from that overflow. But if I'm not taking the time to really look after myself and nurture me, then it becomes really hard. So yeah, I think it's key.
And how do you define leadership?
So many definitions of it. I feel it's about lighting the way for others, right? You equip yourself with the tools so that you could light the way and pass the baton back. And there's so many ways to be a leader, right? I don't think a leader is necessarily the traditional title, but I think it's a way of being. I think it's certain traits that you possess. So I feel anyone could be a leader.
And when you think about the impact that Marielle wants to have in the world, what is that?
I think it's about just helping people be just much more courageous in the work that they do, right? To show up powerfully, not play small, not let comfort kind of get the better of them, but to really just live the life they want to live and do that boldly and courageously. And I want to help to instill that within people.
When you meet people who are not on your level, effectively, who are not thinking that way, who have a different mindset, there are people where they're willing to listen and do something, and there are people who just want to argue. So what do you do in those two instances? Like, how do you decide how much energy to give to, especially the ones who just want to argue, versus falling back and be like, I ain't got time for that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Show them love, show them grace, and keep it pushing, you know?
Simple.
Yeah. That's it.
I like it. I think a lot of times we can I guess overcomplicate it. Because you have people like, no, I want to prove them wrong. I want to let them know that. And you have other people who's like, I'm not trying to save everyone here. I'm trying to save those or help those who are willing to help themselves.
Absolutely. Those are my people, right? Everything is a frequency. And it's like, you either lower your frequency or people rise up to yours, right? So got a choice to make.
And just as we wrap up, you touched on journaling.
Yeah.
How do you stay consistent with journaling?
Yeah. I don't stay consistent with journaling, and that's okay. You know, I don't feel like we necessarily have to stay. You know, I've got a friend, really good friend, Jasmine. She journals every morning. She lives in Miami on a beach, right? So she's happy to go to the beach and journal. And I'm not saying that I'm not blaming my environment, but some days I don't feel like journaling, you know? Some days I something I do listen to religiously is a Mind Valley app. It's a really powerful app, and there's a load of meditations on there. So sometimes I wake up and I feel like doing a visualization, which is what I did earlier today, or I do some EFT. There's different things, different modalities that I tap into. Journaling is one of them. But yeah, I don't always feel that I have to do that. I like to mix it up.
EFT?
Emotional freedom. I'll have to Google. Let me Google it actually. But it's tapping basically.
Huh.
And it's just really powerful. And I always forget what it stands for. Emotional freedom technique.
I haven't heard about that before.
You basically tap on your meridian points, but it helps to release like blocked, stagnant energy, old memories, reinforce new ones. But it's a really powerful method to kind of release old triggers and trauma.
See, I'm learning a lot today. Like, I am learning a lot today. I was like, okay, I'm going to look into that one as well.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good, really powerful.
But thank you for coming on. Thank you for this conversation. And for me, I think it's like I said, you're doing amazing work out there. You show up, you share, and you give to people. But it's always quite important just to like peel back some of those layers and see like when you go into where you were to the courageous person that's showing up right now, people can learn so much from all that, and you've just kind of broken into that a little bit more. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. And yeah, you know, anything I could do to support you and your work, let me know. But yeah, I hope you got value from this.
I did. Thank you. This is Everyday Leadership. We'll see you next week.